Welcome to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower, where we do our best to give you useful information in 20 minutes or less. Now, here's your host, five-time Voice Arts Awards nominee, David Brower.
Thanks, Ellen. This is David Brower with your 20-minute podcast. Our special guest from Spain today is Elsa Byuskov. She's an author, very successful author, and we had her on the show several months ago talking about her groundbreaking work on Martinus, who lived from 1890 to 1981, the Danish philosopher, visionary, and mystic. And now she's got a new book out with the help of co-author Maria McMahon. It's called Reincarnation in a Nutshell. Elsa, good to have you back. How are you? How's life in Spain?
It's wonderful. Thank you very much. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. I just loved our first conversation about your groundbreaking work on Martinus. And I mean, gosh, if I remember right, he had like over 9,000 pages that you went through on that guy?
Yeah, he actually wrote around 10,000 pages of spiritual wisdom. And it's such a pity that it isn't better known, because it really explains everything. I mean, the mystery of life revealed, where we're coming from, where we're going, why death is an illusion, why reincarnation is a fact, the law of karma. I mean, there are so many aspects that I can't even mention them.
We'd have to do another show.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, people could go back to our original conversation because it really, really was fascinating. And reading part of your bio here, it says that you had never been able to find anywhere about life, death, and the mystery of both, that you had to tell people about it. Your passion was so intense that you wrote your first book, Death is an Illusion, which was an introduction into Martinus. And so good, so good. So was that the impetus for your new book, Reincarnation in a Nutshell?
Well, actually, I together with Maria, we live quite close to each other, and we hike once a week, so we talk a lot.
Nice.
And then we decided to sort of make a book series, and this is the first in the series. We are now writing the second, and just to take out single aspects of Martinus's work and explain them in simple words, and so that they're easy to grasp. And then just take one aspect, and then when that is done, and it's a short book, only about 120 pages,
mm-hmm.
And then when that is done, we can move on to the next aspect, and sort of to pick it down into smaller bits, because the Martinus's work, it's huge. I cannot explain how huge it is. It really is mind blowing. But in order to get a foothold on it, I think it can be useful to just like introduce a single aspect of it, explain that so that everybody can understand it, and then move on to the next, so that it doesn't become too overwhelming.
I mean, that is so brilliant, because as we talked about originally, and that you just mentioned a few moments ago, Martinus had written 10,000 pages on everything basically concerning life and how we live and how we die and all those kinds of things. And so at first blush, as a observer from the outside myself, I'm going, holy crap, how do I get through 10,000 pages, And so I was intrigued by your first book for sure, but this series is brilliant, because to be able to take one thing at a time, like this first book is Why Reincarnation is Real, and do that 100 pages or so, and know that it's series book one of an ongoing series with you and Maria, I think that's brilliant, man. It's really going to get stuff out in a manageable and easy to read format.
That is the idea, indeed. Yes.
So let's talk about the first book, Reincarnation in a Nutshell. So what's the nutshell look like?
Yeah, the thing is that when people talk about reincarnation, most people think about an Eastern religion.
Sure.
And that it has something to do with religion, and that it has something to do with faith. And actually, it has nothing to do with either of those things, because reincarnation is what all living beings do, from atoms to cells to molecules to plants, animals, human beings, planets. All living beings reincarnate, and that is it's simply the way that life is blown onto the physical plane. That is through reincarnation. That means that a spirit obsesses or possesses a physical body, and in that way, that physical body becomes alive. And that is the way that things are. It is not a belief. And that is what we are explaining in this book, that this has nothing to do with belief. This is just explaining the things that we already know and looking at them from a new angle, maybe. Like, for instance, we reincarnate into our physical body on a daily basis because it is a well-known fact that the physical matter of our body has a lifespan of an average of lifespan of 3 months. The cells have an average lifespan of 3 months, and then they die and they're replaced by new cells. And after a year, every cell in our body has been replaced. Wow. We are now talking about 2 completely different bodies. This is not something that I'm inventing. This is a scientific fact. But why this hasn't been talked about so much by the scientists is that when every single cell has been replaced, then where's the constant?
Right.
Where's the constant? Where's the memory? How can we remember our childhood in a completely new body? That is because we are not the body. We are our spiritual body, or our consciousness. And our consciousness sits around the physical body like a bubble. It's not limited to the brain.
So spiritual consciousness is the constant.
Yes, exactly. That is the constant. So, for instance, when you look at 3 different pictures of the same person, like say when he was 8 years old and 27 years old and 50 years old, you are looking at 3 completely different bodies.
Bet. Absolutely.
Yeah, but still you're looking at the same person. And this really explains that reincarnation is nothing unusual. It's not only something that happens between lives, but it happens all the time. We reincarnate, our spirit reincarnates on a daily basis into the constantly changing physical matter of our physical body.
So what most people would describe that as is the aging process. I mean, they lump that into, it's just the aging process. That's, that's life. That's how it goes. And that's just kind of the surface, just kind of a catchphrase that helps people basically understand, oh, okay. And then when you get into the meat of it, the conversation, the detail of it, like you and Maria have done, oh my God, that just puts a whole different spin on it.
It's true that the aging process also comes into it, but that's a different story. Because, I mean, what we have to understand is simply this, that we are not identical to our physical body, full stop. And when we can reincarnate into a new body within the same lifetime, then it becomes obvious that we can also reincarnate into a new body between lives. And I mean, death is an illusion. The death that so many people have a completely unfounded fear of does not exist. Such a death is simply somebody's invention. It does not exist.
So when death happens, the body dies, the spirit does not, correct?
No. Correct. The spirit releases itself from the physical body, and it's a great relief for the spirit. But everything we are, our sense of self, all our talents, everything we are, our whole personality, sits in the spiritual matter of the spirit. This is electromagnetic radiation that holds a whole lot of information. And this package of information in the spirit body is what pulls out at the time of death. It moves on to the spiritual plane where it has a good long rest. The spiritual plane at the moment that we are on now is in the aura of the earth, which is, by the way, is also a
so the spirit, once the body is dead, the spirit is alive and moves on. Many of us believe, well, that spirit goes to heaven and lives with Jesus Christ. But yet, with that said, and I firmly believe that, to be honest with you, but with that said, I also know of people being able to think about, talk about, dream about past lives, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, our spirit moves on to the spiritual plane, and that's the law of attraction that decides where it goes, because our spirit body vibrates on a specific wavelength, and it will be attracted to a wavelength in the spiritual world that fits its own, because the law of attraction decrees that similar wavelengths attract each other. So we will go to a wavelength in the spiritual world that corresponds to the most developed part of our psyche. So if we are a very loving person, very, very, very kind and helpful, and a good person, we will be attracted to a wavelength in the spiritual realm where all the other good persons live. Wow. and that's a great place to be. But if we are very angry and hateful and unhappy and dissatisfied with life, and we are terrorists or something, then we go to a wavelength where the other terrorists are, because again, it's the wavelength of our spirit body that decides where we go. So it is the law of attraction that decides this.
To simplify it in my mind, and maybe it's more confusing as I say this, but to me, that's the definition of heaven and hell.
Yeah, you can say that. Yes, that's a good point, because those who think about hell, who are very afraid to die and think about hell, they will be attracted to a hell life like place, because the law of attraction decrees that. It's not something that there's no hocus pocus about it. It's the wavelength of your spirit defines where you go. So don't think of hell. That was something I would definitely recommend.
Right.
Think of something nice. Just be a nice person, and then you go to a nice place.
This frequency stuff that you describe so eloquently, is that science? I mean, how do you is that Martinez? I mean, where does that come from?
Everything I say is from Martinez. But of course, Martinez's work links on to science, or let me put it in a different way. With time, the science will accept what Martinez says. Science, like materialistic science, only deals with physical matter, and it doesn't have any theories or anything about spiritual matter. It hardly acknowledges its existence. So it's very difficult to sort of ask science to come up with an explanation for the meaning of life, because they can't, because they don't have access to any spiritual insight, and they can only look at physical matter and analyze that. And when they actually look, they're standing like an analphabet, an alphabet in front of an open book. They can see all the funny black characters. They can't read it.
Yeah, it's black and white. It's formulas. It's A gets to B, gets to C, gets to D. And if I don't have a solution, a formula, a plan to get me to Z, man, I'm screwed, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, we cannot ask physical science or the materialistic science to come up with these, but with time and the science will also move into the spiritual realm, and will realize that spiritual stuff is everywhere. We use spiritual matter every day when we speak on our mobile phone, when we download things from the internet without a cable. We use this type of matter, invisible matter, electromagnetic radiation. We know it's there. We use it every day. So it's just a question of expanding our understanding of what this type of matter can do. And once we realize that our soul, our spirit, is also consists of this type of matter, it's not so difficult to understand that we can be alive without a physical body, which is
absolutely.
What we are.
And periodically, not that often really, but periodically a scientist will have an experience similar to what you're talking about and come back and openly, not very many of them, but openly talk about their experience. And they figure out a way, or they work on a way to marry, if you will, the scientific world and that new world that they've just experienced, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this is what is going to happen also in the future. The two will merge. Spirituality and science will merge. And then we will have spiritual science. And then we will begin to understand what it's all about. We will begin to understand why death is an illusion. We'll begin to understand the journey we are on. And then it becomes really very exciting. It's a whole new panorama that's going to open up for our wondering eyes.
And I just got goosebumps because that's right. I mean, it's with your book, is it The Illusion of Death? I think it was called, right? Death is Illusion. There you go. And then the Reincarnation in a nutshell, and taking these elements of Martinez and digesting them into small, easy to read, easy to understand, 100 or so words in this first series of books. It allows people to open their minds up, if they take the time, and open their minds up to something new. And reincarnation, in a nutshell, why reincarnation is real, is an absolutely brilliant way to start. My gosh, how often will you turn these series around, do you think?
We're almost finished with the next. It's called Fate and Karma in a Nutshell. And I think it will probably be released in January, or maybe before, but it depends on how fast Maria is. I've already done my bit, but this Reincarnation in a Nutshell was released in January 2019, so I'm hoping for January 2020.
Wouldn't that be nice to have a a new book come out every January, so you know to look for it, expect it. And is there a place for people where they can log in, maybe to your website or whatever, and be alerted to when these books are published?
Oh, absolutely. They can go onto my website, newspiritualscience.com, and they can subscribe to my newsletter. Then they will definitely be informed. I release a new article every month that about aspects of Martinus's work. There are already 55 articles on my website, and they're all aspects that will give them an insight into the enormous cornucopia of insight of Martinus's work. So yes, reincarnation. No, sorry, newspiritualscience.com is my website, and there's loads of all my books are there, and there's loads of free stuff to download, and a lot of my interviews are there that they can listen to. So yeah.
In fact, I just pulled it up, and it's New Spiritual Science, Bridging Spirituality and Science, which is just what we talked about. And then there's a drop-down box so you can learn about Martinus, who he is, the symbols, about you, the blog. There's your books, free resources, and it's just absolutely a wonderful, wonderful website, folks. It's newspiritualscience.com, and be sure to sign up for the newsletter, watch the video, and there's tons of information on here. Oh my goodness gracious. I'm looking at the Reincarnation in a Nutshell, Key Life Lessons from Martinus, the Modern Mystic, and it's just great. It's an easy to read, understand, and navigate website. And so congratulations on that, and congratulations on the work that you're doing with Maria McMahon. The first book, the Spiritual Nutshell series, book 1 is out. It is called Reincarnation in a Nutshell. And the first question on Amazon is brilliant. I think it says, would it not be wonderful if we did not only live one life? Would it not be great to know that death was an illusion and that we lived on after our physical body had stopped functioning? I mean, those two sentences, if those don't grab people's attention and make them want to go to your website, I don't know what will. You are, you are on a roll and a passion, and you are following exactly where Martinus would have anybody go. It's like you have been the chosen one. You know what I mean?
Let's see about that. But I'm just doing what I feel prompted to do.
Well, that's my point. And, but you're passionate about it. You never give up on it. You keep pushing and pushing and pushing to get the right kind of message out there. And what I love about your work is you're so authentic. Your integrity is so intact, and you care about people on the receiving end, if you will, and making Maria making life easier for us to put our foot in the water about what this reincarnation conversation really should be about.
I think it's such a pity that people go around being afraid of life, fearing death, fearing a lot of things when that's not how things are. I mean, we have to open up, and it will happen, but it will be a completely new world picture. It will be a new world culture that is only beginning to start to grow now. And this Martinus's world picture will become general in about 200 years. That's what he says himself. Well, and we're only just beginning. And of course,
he's been right so far, right?
Yeah, he has absolutely been right. And I mean, when you have read his work, you're not in doubt. You're just thinking, yes, this is how it is. This is how it has to be.
I love it. So we're out of time, but I want to get people to your website. It's newspiritualscience.com. And if you go to Amazon and click in her name, it's ELSE, capital BYSKOV, and you'll find all her books there. Reincarnation in a Nutshell, written by Elsa Byuskov and Maria McMahon. Great friends, great walking partners, and now great authors. So congratulations, and I look forward to talking to you again when series number 2 comes out.
Thank you so much. So do I. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Listen to your 20-minute podcast with David Brower on the go. Downloads are available on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, any podcast app, and on our website at davidbrowervo.com/your20minute podcast. Until next time, thank you for listening.